got that name from a cop back in the 1930s. It was a rough neighborhood, a lot of gangs and crime, and so he gave it the name Hell's Kitchen. Now in the 1950s, Hell's Kitchen was the inspiration for one of Broadway's biggest musicals, and that was the West Side Story. So this is our West Side Story area. Now in the mid-1990s, they started redeveloping the shoreline on the west side here, and it is now called the Hudson River Park. If you look along the street, you see trees that are lined all the way down and that have now become open public spaces. Barbecue events going on this pier, bringing people out into the shoreline area. Keep looking to the left. After that pier, you see a group of buildings. This is the Hudson Railroad Yard project. These buildings are built over tracks where trains lay over from Pennsylvania Station. So all those buildings, their foundations are in between tracks, so trains can still lay over. Now if you see that middle architectural, these are classic ships and they're open to the public. Keep looking over here, we got greenery on these piers. Trees, and when they're in full bloom, it's like you can go sit there under the shade in the middle of the Hudson River. So again, a lot of the park area has been developed. Now also recreational. If you go into Chelsea Piers, they got restaurants, bowling alleys, swimming pools. You're going to see one pier with a net around it, and that is so you can get a bucket of golf balls and practice your golf swing. So this is what we're passing right now. All right, now right after the Chelsea Piers, we're going to be looking at a pier called Pier 54. Now, Pier 54 was once owned by the White Star Line Company, the same company that built the Titanic. So in 1912, when the Titanic sunk, the survivors arrived at Pier 54 on the rescue ship called the Carpathia. But 12 years ago, Hurricane Sandy came into the city and pretty much destroyed what was left of Pier 54. So they redeveloped it into a small man-made island, and that is called Little Island. And you're going to see it up ahead. Little Island is built on these concrete columns, and then it opens up like tulips to represent our Dutch heritage. So this is Pier 54, but today it's also called Little Island. And this is what you see after this green pier to the left. And there's Little Island. Now behind Little Island is the Chelsea Market. And the Chelsea Market is home to the Food Network. But the Chelsea Market used to be the old Nabisco factory. And Nabisco stands for National Biscuit Company. How many people have enjoyed an Oreo cookie? Oh yeah, I've had my share, I know that. Right behind there at the Chelsea Market is where the Oreo started in the early 1900s with the Nabisco factory. So this is home to the Oreo cookie. All right, now after we pass the fireboat here, we're now in another section of Manhattan, and this is called Greenwich Village. Now Greenwich Village has always been very political, it's a very diverse community, but it's also a very colorful community. A good example, ladies and gentlemen, is during the 1960s and early 70s. The Vietnam War was going on, and there was a lot of protests. This is where your music was. People like Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Barbara Streisand, the Mamas, all writing songs in Greenwich Village that were played over the radio at that time. Then exposure in Greenwich Village. Now, many, many years later, Dave Chappelle got his start in Greenwich Village. In 1969, this is the civil rights movement for the gay and lesbian community. It is called Stonewall. And at the end of June every year, they have the Pride Parade that has now become an international event. All started out in Greenwich Village. So this is our Greenwich Village over here to the left. All right. Now, if we look over here to the right, whoever on the third deck, some pair of suntan glasses just happen to fly down here. They look like they're magnetic, so watch the winds. Yeah. Flying objects over here. Let's look over to the right on New Jersey, folks, and we see a big sculpture there, a white sculpture. That is a sculpture of a lady, and ladies and gentlemen, she has her finger to her lips, like she's going. The name of that sculpture is called Water Soul, and so this decorates our New Jersey shore. So this is what we're looking at here. All right, now just a little bit of history about the Hudson River. The Hudson River is called the North River, and the Dutch gave it that name to mark the northern boundaries of the Netherlands. Later on, though, an English explorer named Henry Hudson was hired by the Dutch to look for a shortcut to the West Indies. Instead of finding the West Indies, he found one of the best protected harbors in the world, with the island of Manhattan in the middle of it. And so the river is named after this gentleman, Henry Hudson, who sailed up it back in 1609. Now, the Hudson River is also the deepest river in the United States. There are some areas of the Hudson River that go as deep as 200 feet below sea level. The area that we're on right now is around 60 feet deep. So this is a little bit about our Hudson River. Let's look to the left again, and we're looking at an area called Tribeca. Now, Tribeca is an acronym, and when the streets merge and create these triangular plazas, and this is how we get the name Tribeca. As we continue looking to the left, notice how the buildings are getting bigger and taller. That's because we're now getting into our financial district. This is where the money is. But this is also where 9/11 happened. Now, when they were rebuilding 9/11, there was talk about building another 2 towers. That didn't happen. What they did do, though, was build the one building that you see there, and that is called World Trade Center 1. What they did do was put the characteristics of the 2 towers that came down into this building. And I'm going to point those out to you. If you look to the top of the building, to the top of the antenna, it is 1,776 feet tall. The spirit of 1776. And that is the year of the American Declaration of Independence. It is currently the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere and the 6th tallest building in the world. That's the World Trade Center building. All right, now let's look over to the right side on our New Jersey shoreline, and what we're looking at right over here is a big clock, the Colgate clock. Now that has been ticking out time since 1922. Is the oldest part of the city. This is called Battery Park. To the left, we're looking at the Staten Island Ferry. This is the public transit between Manhattan and Staten Island. Up ahead to the right, we're now looking at Brooklyn. Brooklyn gets its name from the Dutch. There is a town in Holland called Brooklyn. Now, Brooklyn was the 3rd largest city in the United States at one time. It was its own city. And New York was number 1, which is to the left. So you had 2 major cities right across from each other. The only thing dividing it was the East River. But if you look directly ahead, had the Brooklyn Bridge opened in 1883. And when the Brooklyn Bridge opened, it connected two cities, the city of Brooklyn to the city of New York. Today, it connects two boroughs. It's all part of New York today. But when the Brooklyn Bridge opened, they were two separate cities. Now, the Brooklyn Bridge was designed by a German immigrant. His name was John Roseman, and he was a pioneer in steel suspension cables. And so, when the Brooklyn Bridge opened, it was considered at that time the eighth wonder of the world. That's what they were calling it. Right after the Brooklyn Bridge, you're probably looking at another bridge, the Manhattan Bridge. And that opened in 1909 to connect the subway service from Manhattan into Brooklyn. The subway opened up in 1904 in Manhattan. Now they're working to connect it to the other boroughs. And the Manhattan Bridge opened to service that. So we're going to be going underneath the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge in just a few minutes. During the 16th, 17th, and 1800s. And the reason for that is because the East River would not freeze over. And so it kept New York City open all year round for its maritime business. All right, now we look to the right on our Brooklyn shore, and we're coming up to the Fulton Ferry Boat Landing, named after Robert Fulton, who perfected the steamship, and the Claremont was the name of that steamship, and it went up the Hudson River back in 1809. As we go underneath the Brooklyn Bridge, look to the right, and we're also coming into a park area of Brooklyn. Now this was all redeveloped years ago, and now it's pricey real estate. Some of those warehouses go all the way back to the 1800s, and you got a park, you got a carousel down here. This area of Brooklyn is known as Dumbo, and Dumbo means down underneath Manhattan Bridge overpass. So Dumbo is another acronym, just like Tribeca is. So New Yorkers tend to talk a little bit of shorthand to describe areas of the city. Now we're going to be going underneath the Manhattan Bridge. It is common that you might hear a train go right over us as we go underneath the bridge. That's what the bridge was built for. So this is our Manhattan Bridge. We're going to be going right now. Don't take a taxi from the pier, or you could be waiting until tomorrow. Exactly. The meter, forget it, you gotta take a second mortgage on the house. All right, all kidding aside, coming over here to the right of us, we're passing a Con Edison substation, but in a minute, it's gonna open up to the old Brooklyn Naval Yards. Now, they closed these naval yards in the 1960s. But they were building battleships for the U.S. Navy going as far back as the 1700s. Now there were two major battleships built in the Brooklyn Naval Yards that played a major part of the United States' involvement during World War II. The first battleship that was built there was the USS Arizona. And when that was sunk at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, it officially brought America or the United States into World War II. The second battleship that was built there ended World War II, and that was the USS Missouri. In 1945, the Japanese government surrendered to Allied forces on the decks of the USS Missouri, and World War II officially ended. This is where those ships were built, right over here at the old Dominion Mill. All right, now this next bridge we're going to be going under is the Williamsburg Bridge, and this opened in 1903. So another bridge connecting Manhattan and Brooklyn, and this is the Williamsburg Bridge. All right, now let's look to the left as we go underneath Williamsburg Bridge, and you're looking at a great view of that Empire State Building. Reasons why is because you can almost see the entire length of the building because the buildings are so low on this east side. Now the Empire State Building opened in 1931. It only took 18 months to build, and it's 102 floors. But when the Empire State Building opened, it sat empty because it opened during the Great Depression. Nobody had the money to rent the floor space. The New York Times called it the empty State Building. But so many people went up to that observation deck that paid the light bill until they could get that floor space rented. Now, in 1933, the movie King Kong opened. They wanted to be in the building that Kong climbed. So the bottom line to this story is it took an 8 to get that building going. Prior to that, it was actually sitting empty. Now another building of interest that people ask me about, so I'm going to kind of be into the punch. That building with the gold-pointed life insurance company building. So now you know where your premiums are going, right? Right to the roof. They can't see the roof right now, but you will in a minute. You see the Empire State Building, and then right after that, you'll see that gold-pointed roof. There it is, through the chimneys of the Continental City. That's the New York Life Insurance Company. island is called Ellis Island. It is named after a merchant named Samuel Ellis, who acquired it after the American Revolutionary War. However, in 1892, it opened as the largest immigration center in the United States, processing thousands of immigrants coming into this country every day. It closed in 1954, and today it is now part of our National Park Service. So we'll be looking at Ellis Island. Now the next island, of course, coming up is Liberty Island. And this is where Lady Liberty stands today. Now the Statue of Liberty is a gift from France. The French gave it to us back in 1884. But it took us a few years to put it together. So she officially did not open until 1886. Was who saw Eiffel, the same Eiffel that the tower is named after in Paris. Now from toe to torch, she stands at 150 feet tall. But from her pedestal to her torch, she's 302 feet tall. Now the reason why she's green is she's a bit seasick. It's actually made out of copper. And over time, copper does oxidize and turns green. Think of finding an old penny, and the edges are a little bit green on it. So this is why Lady Liberty is green. So this is what's coming up next. Ellis Island, followed by Liberty Island. But while you're waiting to get pictures of that, which I'm sure a lot of people are, I want everyone to stand up and look to the back of the boat and look at this Manhattan skyline city. And then you're going to get a spectacular view of the Manhattan skyline. Now I'm telling you this now so people have a chance to get up here to the back of the boat and get these pictures. This is where you get your photo bundle of New York City, not a Smurf in Times Square. Ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is look around. This is the Governor's Island Ferry coming into Manhattan. That takes you in and out of Governor's Island. And of course, the orange one is the Staten Island Ferry. So you've got all this boat service you're looking at. And when we get out here just a little bit further into the New York Harbor, this Manhattan skyline becomes spectacular. Now to the left, again, you're looking at Governor's Island. It's a naval military base. A lot of those buildings go back to the early 1900s. Some even go back to the 1800s. The fort that you see there, Fort William, is 1812. And you can see a big cannon on the edge of that fort on the roof.
去了2次哦，哦3次哦。